Hi, Karen. I was wondering what you looked like. I'm like, who? Like looking at your artwork, I was like, I wonder who this person is behind this like such cool artwork. Thanks for joining us
Yeah,
today.
thank you.
I'm so excited to learn more about you because, especially because of your just uniqueness. I feel like so many art Scope. So I'm the CEO at Scopio. We have more than 13,000 photographers that sell their images through us, and we focus really on like diversity and people around the world. So we have artists like all over the place, and they're really trying to establish themselves as unique.
Hmm.
And I don't like, and I always want to give them advice, but I would love to hear from you on what that is because I feel like when I'm always like, oh, it's cool, it's unique, but it's not like something so incredibly different, which is what I feel like you have. So tell me like a little bit about how you made that happen.
So I actually started like when I was young, I knew I wanted to be creative, but nothing was like really clicking. Um,
Yeah.
so after a while I got really into music actually, and I think for about like 10 years, when I was in college, I started shooting concerts, and that was fun for a while, but then it really wasn't fueling like the creative like urge inside me, you know what I mean? It was fun, but I was like, oh man, I wish I could like do something else. So at around 2008 I started photographing people, like doing portraits. And I I was like so lost because I was self-taught, so I really didn't know, where to look for inspiration, or like, what to do for wardrobe and what to do for, location. So um I knew I didn't want to shoot at a studio right then and there. So I just kind of started finding like abandoned places to shoot because I was like, oh, these are like really cool locations. It's kind of like having like a set, just to go in and like kind of move around furniture and like um
What city
you
do
know
you live in?
I'm in New Hampshire actually. I travel a lot, but I live in New Hampshire, so I'm on the East Coast. And so I started doing that, but like the thing that bothered me is my images weren't really, I feel like it wasn't resonating with me, like what I was creating wasn't really connecting. And then in 2011 my father passed away really unexpectedly, and I really started to like pour myself into the images. I kind of used them as therapy. So I think that might lend itself to why my images are so different, because I wasn't really listening to like, people being critics on like how I technically shoot and how I edit and all that. For me, it was just important to be able to tell my story and to connect with other people who might have, gone through the same thing in life and suffered loss. And so yeah, for me it didn't really matter really how I was shooting. It was just getting my images out there the way I wanted them to be seen. And that's kind of how I guess I got my style. And after a while I just kind of like stuck with that, and I started like doing different characters, and I eventually got a studio and started building sets. So now I do like half on location and half set building.
And so tell me about some of the characters that you've built. What is that?
Um,
What is the process like?
so I don't know. I just like I like color a lot. Like I find a lot of inspiration in film. So in terms of like color, I love Wes Anderson. Stanley Kubrick, just because I love how he kind of psychologically does imagery. So, like one thing I recently built was like this big cat costume, and I called it the candy colored cat, and it's like a pink cat, and he's wearing like a blue suit. But one of my
So what?
favorite.
So what happens? You draw that. Like how do you ideate that? Like you draw it first, and then what's like the
Yeah,
steps?
sometimes I do sketch my stuff out sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. It was somewhere down the line, actually during COVID, I started just sculpting stuff. And I started doing that because at first, when everything went on lockdown, I wasn't shooting people. So I actually bought mannequins and I would like sculpt masks and put them on the mannequins and build sets for them in my studio. Cause I
Sculpt
was like,
masks and put them on the mat. Like, what does that mean?
so like I would like create a mask and then I would put the mask like over the mannequin so you really couldn't tell it was a mannequin. It just looked like someone wearing a mask. And then I would just like dress up the mannequin so it looked like I was still taking photos of people during COVID, but I actually wasn't. It was basically like making a set installation and then just shooting it.
Is that what the astronaut is? Is that a person
No,
or?
the astronaut is a real person.
Okay.
That's one of the favorite things I shoot. I've always just had an obsession with like science fiction and science fiction movies and art and just space exploration. So, at the end of 2017, I ended up getting a high altitude suit, and I've been shooting that
How'd you
here
get
and
that?
there. What's that?
How'd you get that?
I actually got it on eBay. There's like a plethora of them on eBay. Um,
Cool.
but yeah, I've been traveling around with that, shooting that a lot. I've gone like all across the United States with that. I've flown on a plane with it multiple times, just lugging it around.
And does it get its own seat?
No, but I actually the first time I flew with it, the helmet is like the most expensive piece to it, and I wanted to like have it with me on the plane, like in the overhead. So I had tweeted TSA and I was like, hey, can I bring an astronaut helmet on the plane? And they were like, of course, happy blast off. And I was like, oh my God, TSA answered me.
Was that on Twitter? You tweeted.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that was a few years ago.
and how do you like break into these venues?
Um, I don't know. Well, some of them I get permission. Some I just kind of like find as I go, like the abandoned places. Um, it depends. I do a lot of research. I literally like at least probably 2 hours a day. I'm like looking at locations, and
Wow,
everyone's
two
always
hours
like,
a
"How do
day.
you find that?" And it's like just looking at people's stuff on like Instagram and all that. Like if someone tags a place, even if I have no immediate plans to go there, I'll just like put it. I have a folder that's like it's a folder with like all the states and like different countries in it, and I'll just like file it away just in case I'm like, oh, if I'm
What
ever
like
like
what platform do you use for that?
just Google Drive.
Okay, cool. Easy enough for people.
Yeah.
And what do you like? What is it in the? I gotta have so many questions. I mean, is there something you want to talk about specifically that's like inspiring you or on your mind? Maybe it's something that's bothering you.
Um Something that's inspiring. I already mentioned uh movies being inspiring. I mean, right now I'd say just the climate we're in. It's very strange to me, and I think it's important for people to stay creative, even if people don't consider themselves to be an artist, which to me, if you create, you're an artist. You don't have to professionally be creating. But yeah, I see a lot of people that right now they're either, they're kind of getting cabin fever or kind of depressed about lockdowns and all that. And my advice is just to find ways to create. Like I'm an open book. Like if anyone ever has any questions, you can ask me like, oh, how do you recommend like starting maybe like a photo series or anything like that. So I think that's really important right now, just to keep people's spirits up.
How can they use something like say you do a photo series like the astronaut series? What do you do to promote that? Or like how do you get people to care about what you're doing?
So I actually make most of my income selling prints. Um, so I'll go to events and I'll have all my prints out and people can come purchase them, which has been rough because the past 2020 and now 2021, most of the events that I had scheduled are getting canceled. So I have been lucky enough to be selling on the internet. I do book shoots as well. So like one thing I was doing, which I don't do as much now again because of COVID, but I would do like a monthly themed portrait session. So I would set up like for in October for Halloween, I would set up like a spooky set and people can just come in and out, kind of like a photo booth. And I would charge like $30. They come in, they can bring their family. I give them a couple photos and then the next person comes. So they all can just book like 20-minute slots. But in terms of like people getting interest, I really have to put myself out there, lots of networking, lots of posting,
Do
just
you
trying
like
to do
that,
it.
or does that stress you out?
Yeah, it's stressful. Especially now, like with the Instagram algorithm, it makes it extremely hard. So, I joined, I think that's how you found me is, Clubhouse.
Yeah.
I just joined that, and that has been really amazing in terms of networking. So I recommend if anyone can get on there right now to try to, because it's helped me out a lot.
Yeah, it's new ideas.
Right.
I'm getting a lot of new ideas from it, which is great. Um, so I mean, you're in New Hampshire. How do you deal usually outside of COVID with like traveling and creating this like these scenes? Like somebody would go to your website and book you, or
Yeah, people can do that. I do travel. I'm not flying right now. I just don't feel comfortable flying, but I have driven. Like I actually drove from New Hampshire to Idaho. I did kind of like a road trip, and I put it out there that I could be booked when I did that back in September, and I went down to North Carolina to shoot a family as well. So I do travel. It's just it has to be a little bit more planned out because I haven't been flying.
yeah. What do you think about like all these like abandoned buildings in America?
To me, it's so sad when they get like torn down. I'd rather at least see them repurposed. Um, it's very strange to me that we're so quick to tear down like buildings that are a part of history that have a lot of history to them, just to put a parking lot or some corporation or whatnot. So, um, yeah, it's sad. Like a lot of places I've shot have actually been torn down, so it's like I'll never get the chance to go back or just get the chance to go back and maybe it's really cool to me when a place does get revamped, um going back and seeing it after it's been fixed up. I wish I could see more of that, and I don't know why that doesn't happen, but
Yeah. I was on with the photographer the other day, and he's from St. Louis, and he also goes and shoots abandoned buildings. And obviously, half of the city is like dead. All the buildings are abandoned, and they have all these historical sites that nobody knows about. One
mhm.
of which is like the one called Cahokia Mounds, and it was like the largest city in at the time. I forget when, but at the time it was like bigger than London for the amount of people
Yeah,
that lived there, Native Americans, and then somehow they disappeared.
that's
Um,
crazy.
I know you should look it up, but
Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
I was thinking like what could cities do to like educate, like why is everyone so uneducated about where they live and like the history of what's around them? It's so crazy. I'm like, what could they do, or what could artists do to like start teaching people? Like I think with something like your photography, it's a little shocking. So maybe like you can jar people into a direction that you want to take them in. Like, look at
Yeah.
this. Um, where yeah, so I think that's super interesting. I'm thinking like how that could live like in an educational perspective, especially around like education for
I've found too that places that are more open to having artists come in and do something with the space are typically the places that stick around longer, and sometimes can be saved. Because you got to think too, not just photographers, like there's film crews and that sometimes want to film in a place like that, and depending on who's filming it, I mean, there could be a big budget to actually help fund renovations of the location. So there are places, and I think it is getting a little bit more popular for places like that to actually, invite other people's ideas of how to use the space in terms of, everyone kind of wins. It's like whoever uses the space gets to create what they want to create, and the space usually gets, some of that funding. Um, so yeah, I wish more places were open to that kind of idea and relationship with artists.
And how do you usually just like go to the website and email them? And you're like, hey,
Yeah, like the shoot I just did in North Carolina, it was an old prison, like a really tiny prison, and I can't remember the name of it. But I was like the first one to ever ask them, obviously they had questions. They were like, what is this for? I actually took photos of the family in it, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, they were very open. They charged us and we paid the fee, and we got to shoot there for a few hours, and that
you have
was
to
really
pay?
fun. Yeah. So
That's not
like they
cool.
yeah, they charged us, so like the site got some money, which I'm assuming, I mean, hopefully they must have some sort of fund for like reservations or whatever. So, um, but yeah, like that's just a good example of what I wish I could run into more. But sometimes I'll email a place and they're just not for it. And what I mean, that's okay, but I feel like the more open you are and the more people you work with and the more connections you have, that it gets the word out, and a lot of those places can be saved or helped or cleaned up or whatever they're looking to do.
That's awesome. Well, what's your dream project?
Oh, my dream project. I mean, there's a lot of places I'd love to travel and shoot. I just want to like maybe just start working with more musicians. Okay, my dream project, actually, my first love was film. Like I wanted to go to film school. Like I said, I love movies. So I guess my dream project would actually be to at least have like some sort of budget to do even like a short film, like to start off with a short film. Not to say I'm going to like give up photography, but I would like the two to kind of like coincide with each other. And I've done a few like music videos here and there, but I would really love to be able to do like a 10-minute short film. That's like my goal right now.
And that would still be in that like haunted kind of
Yeah,
idea.
I would like it to be my style, definitely. So I would love to like, when people look at it, they know it's my work. And I've worked on some things here and there, but like I would like to, direct something like that myself so I can like it's fully my input and it looks like my work aesthetically throughout. Um, yeah,
Well, I think you can make it happen. You have all the skills.
I hope
You just
so.
need the time.
I'll make it work.
Yeah, are you missing a skill set or something? Is that like what is it that
No, I mean it's mostly budget, I mean doing something like that. I'm good at working with very little financially, like making things happen in terms of like when I build sets, a lot of it is kind of like optical illusion type stuff like I'll sometimes I build like a little set for the foreground and I kind of shoot through it so it looks like a normal size set, but it's actually like 3 by 4 feet or something. And I'll just use like forced perspective so that like something like that is a good way to like save on a budget. But yeah, I think it's mostly that and finding people, because I'm assuming everyone involved would like to be paid too. I don't know too many actors that would just do something for free right now. And it's hard again because of COVID, like everyone's
yeah.
desperately in need of getting paid. So, um, yeah, that's it. It's always money that stops me, but I mean, I feel like I can still find a way. I just have to sit down and kind of like figure everything out. I know it's something I will do eventually, hopefully sooner than later.
That's awesome. Well, I'll think on it and think if I have any ideas for you. I think a good perspective might be like a kind of one of these cities that are dying, and you make
Yeah,
something for them and to show like something like a St. Louis where they have these gorgeous buildings and nobody knows anything about their city. Maybe they have like a budget, like an actual city
right.
sponsor you to do something like that. Especially if
Yeah,
that was so
there.
good, they might be more engaged.
Yeah, there. I'd love to. I've been to Detroit quite a few
Or
times.
Detroit.
I love Detroit. That's another city that has a lot of history.
You can
Um,
maybe email the people from the website, go to the cities and email them and be like, ask them if they have a budget now for content creation on what you're doing. Then one of them might say yes.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm assuming it's probably fairly easy to get a permit, maybe. I don't know how it is nowadays, but from
Yeah.
what I've heard, it's not that hard. So, yeah, I'll have to look into it.
I mean, the thing is, your website is, I see a lot of photographer websites. Your website's beautiful.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so you already have, like, I feel like like what you present, it's easy for somebody to tell you yes or no. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like there's not that much that they need to look into. They're like, okay, this is cool. I'm gonna back this girl, or
Hmm.
this is not something we're into, which is great. Like when you can get to that point where there's no like you don't really have to pitch yourself. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's not like they have to dig too deep to to tell what sort of imagery
Or
you're
waste your
creating.
time. You know, let's
Right.
get on a call. Let me like. You don't really need to do any of that because
Right.
like just look and tell me like this is what you're into or what you like.
Yeah.
And there's always like in the cities, there's always the smaller city units too. Like there's
Yeah.
the main city one, yeah, and then the smaller ones. And sometimes they have bigger budgets than the actual city themselves,
Right. Exactly.
like the
Yeah.
neighborhood or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta do some researching. Maybe not. I don't want to go out in the cold though. That's the only thing.
I
Like where I am right now, it's like 20 degrees and like
know.
no one wants to be out in that. So,
No, we have one of our photographers, a female photographer. She's amazing. She's in Russia and she shoots underwater. I'm like, how cold is the water underwater in Russia?
yeah.
Like,
Oh
that must be
man.
painful. But then,
I've done some underwater stuff. It's hard. I'd like to do more, but it's hard. Like there's so many there's so many things that can go wrong that you don't even think of. Like yeah, it's crazy. Just like the
yeah,
distortion of the water and like not only does the model have to really be able to pose and be fine and look normal underwater, but the photographer also has to kind of know where to stand, or like how are you going to anchor yourself to actually be able to take the photo. So like yeah, it's crazy. It's something I'd like to do more, but it's definitely it's hard.
yeah, I feel you. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And
Yeah, thank
stay in
you.
touch. So yeah, check us out. We do a lot of videos like tutorials, and our community is like we're interviewing them every day. So if you have any ideas, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.